My name is Norah McFarlane Perez, and I am a novelist living in Lewiston, New York. When I first heard of the Pathways Through Darkness project about a year ago, I was elated when I was asked to be an instructor. Titles are extremely important to authors, and those three words, Pathways Through Darkness, seem to be a magical beginning. Don't we all need a light to guide us through a crisis in gloomy and uncertain times? The brilliant idea of reaching out to those who were either blind or severely afflicted with visual difficulties, and who wish to communicate with others through poetry, short fiction, memoir, or nonfiction, was conceived by Kelly Lang at the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center in Niagara Falls, New York. It was Kelly who found the necessary funding and set up a schedule. Local writers-in-waiting would be welcome to classes at the Lewiston Public Library on Saturday mornings from March through June of 2022, Kelly explained, while others of all ages coping with vision impairment located across the country and elsewhere could Zoom in online. For writers, our lively imaginations are our best friends or worst enemies, and my early enthusiasm soon turned to a quaky trepidation. As a novelist, I am called to slip into the shoes of the characters I attempt to create and walk the miles it takes to discover who they are and why they behave as they do. So although I had taught creative writing to many teenagers and adults, I didn't recall working with any who had no sight or were visually compromised. How would I manage to connect and be helpful to those who had not been randomly blessed with something I had always taken for granted? This would be a challenge. I was helped with this concern by someone who, during our long friendship, had developed macular degeneration, an intimidating condition that had left him blind in one eye and with limited sight in the other. Living alone after the death of his wife, Rita, Bob Giannetti had learned to manage almost entirely on his own, cooking and housekeeping, walking his talkative terrier, Buddy, and still finding transportation by buses, senior vans, and cabs in order to keep appointments and attend frequent cultural events. A renowned, well-traveled, and award-winning poet, he also performed successful readings at various venues, and I had observed how nimbly he navigated his shadowy, uncertain world. There were a few pratfalls along the way, which Bob handled with grace, while retaining his abundant sense of humor, and I admired and respected his sturdy independence, continuous adaptability, and will to live fully and without complaint. This, I thought, is what our pathway enrollees must have had to learn to accomplish, some very early in life, and I hoped I could relate to that. I was, though, unacquainted with Zoom. It sounded like a giddy childhood game that might be fun, and when the classes began, it often was fun, except for the occasional hiccups and bloopers and delays that interrupted our discussions. Overlapping voices, long, inexplicable silences, or unexpected muting made me anxious, though no one else seemed bothered at all. We had all lived through COVID, for goodness sake. So eventually I found my way through the confusing tangle of technology, and I loved those Saturday sessions. Bob, who Kelly had assigned to be my partner, gave an historical perspective on poetry through the ages, and offered guidelines to those who wanted to write it. And while I was to discuss short fiction, I often meandered into memoir. I had recently published my own and found the experience absorbing and liberating, and one ambitious member of the group was already well into recalling his wrenching service in Vietnam, a tale that enthralled us all. As teachers, we offered what we could, hoping it might be useful. And what was so rewarding was to actually see the faces of our bright and engaged apprentices as they revealed their different personalities, interests, and ambitions, to record intimate portions of their own lives and of others, was deeply important to them and to us. And as they carried out our assignments, classmates shared personal stories, insights, and experiences in poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. Bob and I were touched and impressed by the language and artistry of these students as they discovered their own creative possibilities, and we are certain that their voices will speak to you and enlighten you as well. I am deeply grateful for the Pathways Project that brought us all together during a remarkable and life-affirming adventure.